I think it's easy to fall into a little bit of victim in that space. And even though I've done a lot of work to try and, work through that, there are things like, being married for 20 plus years and feeling like I was always trying to be the man that I thought she wanted me to be. And now what I've received from that is really not what I would have hoped, right? And so letting go of that is definitely creates this space of, I feel like I've let go, but then I'll have things come up and I'm like, ooh, it's still somewhere in my body.
All right. Hey, Chip Hopper. Awesome to see you.
So good to be here.
Yeah. So this is such a treat because last minute someone had canceled and I'm like, Chip, can you come on over? You're like, yeah. So thank you.
Like I said, I'm happy to be here and glad that I was just a little bit away.
Yeah, that was very cool. So we've gotten to know each other a lot over the years. So I know quite a bit about certain parts of your life, but you've got something kind of going on here that you're preparing for. So why don't you kind of give us a little backdrop of just briefly who you are, why you're even doing this thing that you're doing, and what it is, and what you'd like a little bit of like support on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Chip Hopper. I do a lot of books. My company is Book Jedi. I actually do a lot of behind the scenes. I'm kind of like Oz behind the scenes and helping people create their books and their stories. And over the last couple of years, I've really felt this pull and this call to be more of Elvis and kind of come out from behind that curtain, right? And in doing so, that has put me in the space of being on stage instead of cheering for my clients that are on stage, right?
Good for you, by the way. That's
it's a big
I've been through that too. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm probably going through it still. But
Yeah, right. And it's like, it's not that I shy away from it, but it's more that it just wasn't where I was feeling called to be, right?
Yeah.
And in that shift, I've created several speaking points that I speak on, whether it's storytelling or, health and growing and mental health and all those things. And AI is a big topic I speak on. Well, I have this opportunity that this mastermind that we at this weekend and several different topics that we could speak on. And I gave my top 3 favorite topics, which aligned perfectly with the platforms that I speak on and the talks. I'm like, I could spend time like tweaking some of the things I have for one of these good presentations. And what they ultimately decided to do was give me a topic that I'm like, wow, this one, like, it doesn't even feel like it resonates at first when it was given to me.
Yep.
And that was to speak on integrity. It's not that integrity is not important to me. It's just that integrity has been such a core of who I am that wasn't one of those, like, I have a story that taught me how to be in integrity, right? Because it's just like always do the right thing for other people and things like that. But I realized as I started to prepare this, that although I've been very much in integrity with other people throughout my life, I have done it to a level that it has created a gap with my integrity with myself. So I have given up self in order to be there for other people. And that's what's really been coming up as I've been preparing this presentation.
How does that show up? The integrity gap with self.
Yeah. So I can kind of take it back to an experience in my childhood. When I was 11 or 12, I remember that my mom came to me at one point and she had kind of broken down because I was very much able to create the situation that I wanted, right? Some through manipulation and other things. And she sat me down and she said, Chip, you are one of the most influential people I know in being able to create what you want. In essence, she gave the speech of, are you going to create for others or are you going to create for yourself? And what I took away from that, even though it was more of a Spider-Man moment where it was like, with great power comes great responsibility, right? But for me, I took it as, oh, if I'm doing something for me or having others choose something that helps me, then I'm not in integrity because I'm choosing me over them. And so it turned into something that throughout my life, I have, people will ask for things and I will give without, compensating myself, or I'll step into these spaces where it's not intentionally pushing things to drive them to create better life for me. I'm creating better lives for those around me. And sometimes my own life has suffered for that.
So what would you like to have happen if you could sprinkle pixie dust?
Yeah, I think the pixie dust moment would look like bringing into alignment this idea of feeling like what I'm doing creates greatness for others and also for myself instead of just for others.
Yeah. So a whole, this kind of more balanced.
Yeah. And when it comes to like integrity, for example, integrity is actually the root of the word, if I'm not mistaken, because I've just barely been like doing this, but it means to be whole. Right. And so that's kind of where I was like the whole for the external and the whole for the internal self.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of openings that we could go, but I want to focus on one because I think it's probably most critical, not for your talk, but for your life.
I'm more interested in what's for my life, right? Like the talk will come and go, but my life is hopefully going to stick around a while.
Yeah. So, and I think it'll help other people who face the same thing because it's not uncommon where someone is told something and then they interpret it a certain way and it kind of rules a lot of how they then show up in life. Mm-hmm. And what you're sharing with this story with your mom is like, that was one of those moments. And she probably didn't mean anything by it. She probably thought she was doing a really good thing.
And
like, hey,
most of my life, I actually felt that too, right? Because I'm like, I'm such a giver, right? And I'm using this power for good.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the way you said it left open interpretation to me, unless you left out her tone. Like you received it as if, like, if I'm a good person, I should do it for others, rather than like the self part seemed like almost like, well, I don't want to be that.
There was a little bit of, I, in essence, broke her in a way because I could get whatever I wanted. And I wasn't always using it for others. I was using it for myself primarily. And she was like, whoa, like I just want you to
trying to disciple you.
Yeah, I want you to recognize that you're actually manipulating others into doing what you want for you.
Yeah.
And so there was absolutely some of that. And I truly was like, wasn't really thinking of others in my actions. I was thinking of what I wanted. Yeah.
All right. So now this is something that I've actually had real life experience with as well, because I grew up with that manipulative energy too. I was very good at getting what I wanted. And early on in my marriage, my wife almost like would feel frustrated and angry because she would always say yes. And then she'd get mad that she'd say yes. She's like, you always get your way, kind of thing. And we've since reconciled that, mostly because I learned how harmful manipulation was in the way I was using it. I mean, the truth is manipulation's neutral in terms of, okay, we can manipulate tools and manipulate things. But if we're doing it with the intent of I'm getting and taking, right, rather than looking at it from a wholeness, that's what I hear you saying. Mm-hmm. You'd like to look at it more from a wholeness.
Yeah. I mean, the word absolutely gets a bad rap when it doesn't necessarily deserve one, right? Because it can be used constructively or destructively.
Yeah. But there's also an element of reconciliation of those times when it was used. And then you can't go back and say, oh, Mom, I'm going to make this right by creating more wholeness. But what you can do is take it forward. And so we're going to do two things. We're going to do a little exercise where first we separate from the teaching, right? So any false interpretation that might be there, we'll collapse that. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
All right.
That's why I'm here.
Well, and then once we collapse that, then we'll move into proper relationship with the superpower, frankly, that you have, which is influencing. You're a strong influencer in terms of how people respond to you. And you can, like you said, with great power comes great responsibility. We all have our superpowers. And if you have that as a superpower, it's like, okay, how to put that into proper context so that you can build relationship and receive fully as well, so that you are in that pure whole relationship. Right?
Right.
All right. The first thing is 2 parts. I cancel any goals that I'm holding on to. So you would say this out loud. I cancel any goals that I'm holding on to.
I cancel any goals that I'm holding on to.
To take what's not mine.
To take what's not mine.
And just drop in your heart on that. And maybe even say it one more time, but drop in your heart.
I release all goals that require me to take what's not mine, or that I don't remember exactly what word we used there, but
that's good. Yeah. I let go of any need I have to take what's not mine is another way of saying it.
I let go of any need I have to take what's not mine.
I cancel trying to take what I think I'm owed.
I cancel trying to take what I think I'm owed.
And I release trying to give in order to compensate for my inadequacy.
I release trying to give in order to compensate for my inadequacy.
Yeah. Breathe. By the way, sometimes people think inadequacy is like this detriment. It's like, no, actually, if we have an inadequacy, it's something just to pay attention to. And it doesn't even have to be fixed. It could just be acknowledged, like, oh, yeah, I'm really bad at Frisbee or whatever it is. Like, okay, well, then look around for where you're strong.
Yeah. When I grew up, and I don't know about you, but it was very much a find your weaknesses and bring them up to average so you can be average in every way, right?
Yeah.
And now it's shifted to like focus on your strengths and become a superstar in those areas and be aware of where you need other people to be strong.
Exactly. And intellectually, we can get that. But if we have a story like yours, and a lot of people do, where, hey, mom sat us down and said something, and then it's like, oh, well, that had an impact. That was one of those core memory moments from the Disney movie Inside Out. It's like that stuck. So we want to release the charge around it, right? We don't want to release the lesson because there was probably good in it. So we don't want to say, well, we're going to throw everything out, but we want to release any charge that might have developed, including any kind of resentment. Like, hey, wait, I'm the way I am because of this. Like, oh, da, da, da. So I release any kind of charge I'm holding.
I release any kind of charge I'm holding
around the lesson mom tried to teach me.
Around the lesson that mom tried to teach me.
And I cancel thinking I know what she taught me.
And I cancel thinking I know what she taught me.
And allow for, and I would say God here, you can say, whatever you like, and I allow for God to reorient to what's true.
And I allow for God to reorient to what's true.
There you go. So there's a releasing happening, just kind of moving a little bit aside. It's almost like if the windows were all shut and the doors were locked, we're just like letting in the air and energy kind of allowed to move, right? The air's kind of coming in and wisping it away. All right. So I allow for mom to be who she is.
I allow for mom to be who she is.
And cancel trying to manipulate her.
And I cancel trying to manipulate her.
As an individual.
Or
anyone else in my life who represents her.
Or anyone else in my life who represents her.
There you go. And breathe. And by the way, if someone's doing this, and if you're having, any kind of emotion come, recognize like this isn't something we have to fix, right? There's not a broken, it's a energetic match. We're moving into a match frequency with what's whole. That's it. So in order to move to a match frequency of what's whole, we've got to let go of what we were hanging on to as true.
There's a lot that I need to let go of in that space. Absolutely.
This is it. So I canceled trying to keep what I think is right.
I cancel trying to keep what I think is right.
And I allow for reorientation of love.
And I allow for reorientation of love.
Okay, breathe. There's just a few parts to this. All right, so now I consider myself in negotiating. I consider myself in negotiating.
I consider myself in negotiating.
As equal with someone I'm negotiating with.
As equal with someone I'm negotiating with.
Okay. And I canceled trying to manipulate myself.
And I canceled trying to manipulate myself.
To get less.
To get less.
And hurt myself.
And to hurt myself.
And you've done this a lot. What happens at the end when you realize like you just did all this work and you didn't get paid? What emotion comes up? Like what thoughts come with it?
I think it's easy to fall into a little bit of victim in that space. And even though I've done a lot of work to try and, work through that, there are things like, being married for 20 plus years and feeling like I was always trying to be the man that I thought she wanted me to be. And now what I've received from that is really not what I would have hoped. Right. And so letting go of that definitely creates this space of, I feel like I've let go, but then I'll have things come up and I'm like, ooh, it's still somewhere in my body.
All right. So that's the frequency. What I want to do here is pray. So what prayer is to me is it's almost like the great abolisher of distortions. people use all kinds of language. I've heard people say, "Oh, you have a curse or a contract," and da da da. Da. It's just language, right? But what it does in this kind of situation is we can actually alleviate what is holding it up, right? The root structure, through prayer. Now, I'm going to teach you a prayer, and anyone, at home can use this too. It's very easy. And some people dismiss it because it's like, well, that's not going to work. It's too easy. But the reality is most people make things too hard, and God's not hard. God's like simple, very simple. Like, look at what Jesus taught. It's like real simple stuff. If we just listen and practice it, it works. Okay. So I'm going to teach you a simple thing. You don't have to do it, but I'm inviting you to join me in doing it. I'm doing it too, right? When I say it, I do this stuff too. And because one of the things that I learned is very, very true. The essence of God is God. The essence of truth is truth. So if you strip away stuff, like you can't strip away truth. It is what it is. It's always going to be what it is. The only thing you can strip away is what doesn't belong, right? So we're getting to the core of what is, this truth that's going to then better serve in your going forward strategies of creating, mutually agreeable contracts that are whole. All right. So the prayer is this: I surrender everything that I've ever learned about life. I surrender everything that I've ever learned about life.
I surrender everything that I've ever learned about life.
And I invite God to reteach me what I need to know.
And I invite God to reteach me what I know.
What I need to know.
What I need to know.
And breathe. And any agreements that are no longer serving God, which would also mean you, any agreements that are no longer serving God, I allow for them to be broken or renegotiated on my behalf.
And any agreements that are no longer serving God or me to be broken.
Allow them to be broken.
Allow them to be broken.
Or renegotiated.
Or renegotiated.
By God.
By God.
And I surrender it now. Amen.
I surrender it now. Amen.
All right, so now breathe, because now the energy's moving, right? You feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a big one. So, and sometimes when we do this work, it's like, hey, we want to be gentle because, very few people want to do the polar plunge, but, we want to go in gently and then trust that, okay, this is the path that's going to kind of open this up. And that was it. Like that will open the door to allow for you to start negotiating more healthy agreements. And all the things that had been in the past, I want your brain to get this, like they're gone. Like let go. There's no recreating. There's no, doing what I did last time. It's gone. Like you honor self by keeping your eyes on God as you negotiate, right? Before I ever negotiate with anybody now, after learning this, is I pray. To my brain, 9 times out of 10, especially early on, I fought it. I'm like, hey, you got to be kidding me. Why would I do that? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? As soon as your brain does that, you're off, right? Listen the first time. And so start just asking, because in the surrender, it's like, hey, God, I got this thing. Like, what's an optimal, approach here? It's like, oh, give them half or give them this and you keep this and, get paid 10 grand up front or whatever the message is. Like, trust it. It doesn't even mean that's where you'll end up, because it might just be that that's what's, necessary in order to open the conversation. But now you're not manipulating. Now you're surrendering. And guess what? You'll be the best negotiator ever, and you'll get paid for it too. Because God's not a one-sided thing. It's not like, oh, well, everything needs to go to them. Like, that's not how God works. God creates what you need, and your needs are going to will always get taken care of if you do it this way. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So I want to actually end there, because I think that was really a good ending point, but I want to give you the last word. So if you have anything, with either your talk, because I know we diverted from the talk on integrity, but to me, this was it. This was the getting rid of that energetic leash that you had that was kind of dictating how you move forward. What's your take on it at this point?
Yeah, it's definitely powerful. And, I've come to use different words than some of the words that we used for things. And so it's bringing together the words that I use. And I believe all of those things, we have different words for things, but it's all the same thing. right? And so bringing that into a space of how does that resonate with the wording that feels true to me? And I love it. And I think that it's fantastic. And listening to that, I think, is absolutely what will shift things in that direction. That alignment is a big piece that I'm looking for, which has been missing for a long time. I've taken some recent assessment on my, personality and space. And it's been interesting to see some of the things that come up as things that I've put aside my entire life. Right. And even though I look back in my life and I see me stepping into those sometimes, my belief was that that's not where I wanted to be stepping. So I was out of alignment with that, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
this is great to use that wording to bring that together.
So I love the thing that you're saying there too about words. Like even people who watch this, they're going to have different words than you, or possibly than me, and that's why I open up like, hey, I do my best to use the words of the person usually, but in the case of this work, it really is important to connect. It's got to connect with the person, and so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I wouldn't say it that way, I'd say it this way, go for it, right? Because it's got to be yours. It's not, well, I got to do exactly what Mark said. That's not true. It's trust in you, trust in the relationship that you've got with your, divine, essence, and allow for that to be what it is. I've done this work with all kinds of different people and different backgrounds. And what I find is it's really just most critical to use language that resonates with them. So if any of this too, Chip, didn't resonate, you can go back and review this and actually reframe it for yourself too.
Well, thank you, Mark. This was fantastic.
Cool.
Really glad I could come in, and thank you for the invite.
Love that you came in. Thanks, Chip.